Hey everyone, this is Bobo here. For those wondering why this episode lacks an intro or has a weird change in quality from the playlist or anything else like that, it's because this was the first episode I worked on for this series. Anyways, for those tuning in, there might be some cursing, and I'm still trying to figure out the audio balance and how to properly pace out scenes. So prepare for that sort of whiplash. This is also a reminder that this series isn't to replace watching and supporting the actual Chaotic series. So go do that! Anyways, on to the episode.
So what's this super secret new battle gear the Overworlders are working on?
All I heard was Maxor thinks it can shut down the Marillions. But I bet we can get Bodil to let us in on the secret.
This is a decent start. There's some intrigue in the battle gear. It's from a rumor that might not even be true. The Marillions get addressed, there's the earthquake. I'm down. Weird how both questions get easily answered, though, really soon, and one doesn't even get explained that well.
He's busy.
That's okay, we can wait.
Jeez, Tom, okay, just force your way in. Pokeax is pretty cute here. His voice acting's pretty slow, but he's cute.
If you're worried, maybe you better take us to Bodil and let him decide if we can come in.
Yeah, maybe that's best.
And then he pulls one of those? Tom's on a roll.
That's okay, Bodil, if you don't know how it works.
I know exactly how it works.
Bodil, I don't think you should do that.
Pretty nice cliffhanger to cut the intro to. I'm surprised he didn't save it for Raznus, but, well, I guess this is more action-packed. You can actually see the Raznus assimilated card in the shot right here, along with Maxor, Felfor, and a bunch of creatures we've already met. Gotta go fast! Gotta go fast! Why haven't they ported out? Seriously, they never even try to go for their scanners. Anyways, props to Kaz for that super cool roll and Tom for throwing off the shot right there.
Don't enter that tube! The Queen ordered us to stay underground!
That's Raznus!
This is a really shocking moment, right? Or it would be, but I'm a little disappointed the episode title gives away one of the coolest parts. But it is a good advertisement, so what do I know? Like I already mentioned, Dangers of Diplomacy is one of my favorite episodes in this series. I didn't actually catch this episode when I was younger, so this really is a nice treat.
That's Raznus!
Man, the way Jason Griffith delivers this line, it's heavy and mixed and kind of restrained, but clearly tells us shock. Like I said, I know Chaotic is this 4-kids cartoon, and this line isn't the best acted thing or whatever, but I do really appreciate the voice work in this series. Ugh, God, you see his gums in this scene. Man, why is this transformation for Raznus specifically so ugly? He didn't have this big of a jaw. Why does he have a gold beard? He didn't even have a golden hair back when he was young. I highly doubt the Danians can control how the assimilated look after the infection process, but if they could, you could probably convince me they made him look like this on purpose, because, geez, man, talk about a total downgrade. He does look a lot better in some other shots we see, though. And this ugliness might be a remnant to an older, unused version of his normal Overworlder art, where he totally does have these huge teeth and the beard, too.
Kira City's in danger! Please! Maxor's gotta save him!
Maxor's on a mission.
I don't know what it is, but the way Kaz and Interest pose and say these lines makes this whole scene really quotable to me.
Maxor's
flips hand on a mission. Right. Anyways, let's continue. The hard cut to said mission's a good idea too. But what is it anyways? Something that's so important he can't come back for? Does he just get sidetracked from it because of the Marillions that attack him? This shot, destroying the destroyed Riverlands, is great. It really emphasizes the awful stuff the Marillion are doing. But, you know, I think the horrors of the Marillions are really undercut by the Danians being around this episode, honestly. It's highly implied that the Danians have really similar mind-altering capabilities, and we learn later in the show that the Danians have some water-related crimes themselves, too, so, I don't know. I don't feel much sympathy for them. By the way, if it wasn't obvious already, the creatures attacking Maxor here are Iraktab and Rathtab. Raznus has some great, subtle expressions in this shot. I really like how his hands move, especially. And it's interesting how he's the one who comments and fills on the blanks about the overworld for the Danians.
Whose side are you on, Raznus? I am a Danian.
You used to be an overworlder. The Danians infected you to change you into one of them.
Yes, Tom, we get it. We watched the episode. Seriously, I know that this is for viewers who missed the episode, but I always found this line really heavy-handed, instead of something more coercive or pain. This line still makes sense, though, and we'll get to that. I really love this dialogue. You're obviously thinking that while watching it, that Raznus is in the right, and people love to call out how stupid Odu Bathax is in this episode, and yeah, they're right. You know, direct order from the Queen, not trying to make a foe during a vulnerable period of time. But seriously, stop and think about it for a moment. You tunneled directly into one of your longtime enemies' weapon stash and their capital. From a military and resource perspective, you'd be stupid to at least not consider taking a shot at it, right? At the very least, grab what you can. Raznus' really level-headed and long-term perspective obviously calls back to his debut episode too, but I don't know how loud and pronounced he is in this episode. This situation calls for it, though, and he isn't the same man anymore. What was I talking about? Right, this is just a really good scene. Oh, by the way, for a guy with no eyebrows or pupils, Odu Bathax is super expressive. Raznus is like, this fucking guy, I swear to Alexia. And, okay, we'll get to the irony this episode, I promise, but man, there's several shots that focus on Raznus' entirely stoic face in this episode. These contrast great with what the viewer expects from him, or at least what they want from him. We, the audience, want Raznus to show something about his old tribe, but there's not even that. When I used to watch these episodes over and over again in high school, I really wished there was something more substantial about Raznus' past and his feeling on it, but it's probably the point that there's not. He used to be an overworlder. Now, he's not. By the way, I was looking at the map, and I can't tell where the Danians really meant to tunnel into. Kordak Falls? Everrain? I have no idea. Ooh, look at all these Marillions. This attack they do here looks really painful, too.
Any questions?
In fact, this is basically the most we get from Raznus in terms of being visually conflicted on what's going on, and that's in the context of Odu asking if anyone has any questions. Speaking as what I assume is either the second in command, or maybe the leader of the drilling squad, Raznus is in a difficult spot. What else can he really say or do that would convince a guy like Odu? But because of the fact he remains silent here, after Odu orders an attack, we know that this still isn't the old Raznus. We know he'd say a lot more to rescue Kiru City. The overworlders that join to help here are Atakat, Intris, Wytod, who has white eyes in the intro and this scene here, but not in a few later ones. He's also holding the Hornsaber. Oh, and Targubaj is here too. The back part of Atakat's foot isn't quite right in this shot. Here, the back claw looks like where a human's heel should go, but in this frame, it seems to be more where it's intended. Raznus is so internally thinking, oh, fuck. I'm really surprised not a single creature tries to rescue at least Bodil and Olkiax here, or even, take them as a hostage. They kind of become important and used by the Danians later in the episode, but the Overworlders are pretty close here. Wait, they use that voice clip again in a second, don't they?
I am not your enemy!
Willie, you did a great imitation of one last time you were here. And now you're back to finish the job. But I won't let you.
Man, Intris is really cold and super aggressive to Raznus in this episode, even as he tries to explain to her what's going on. I really can't stress enough how out for blood she is in this episode for him. We know from the cards that sometimes the brainwashed are viewed as simple traitors by at least some creatures. I guess that idea is viewed with parasites too? I guess this could feed into the whole Raznus was turned willingly theory, but I'll address that again later. By the way, in lore, Interest and Maxor are really tight, right? We're not quite sure when that happened, but do you think Raznus and Interest used to be really good friends too? Anyways, I guess he literally did try to infect or assassinate Maxor, so maybe I shouldn't blame her too hard. Man, Raznus' panting right here really sells his old and feebler nature, but he puts up a pretty decent fight with Interest through most of the episode. Also, if you can't tell, Interest is wearing a Tornkrith here. She's really skilled with the water element in the cards, and she kicked some tail earlier with it, so this fits really well. The faces Tom makes trying to get the Sting Blade. They're hilarious, but it does actually sell the tension pretty well too. Ooh, OKX doesn't have his mustache colored in on this shot. And then Kaz comes in and saves them. Cool. It's an awesome moment, but did he not tell Peyton or Sarah what was going on?
You're not going anywhere!
Wait, you were just caught in the tunnel a few scenes ago. What? Oh wait, they went through the other tunnel. I mean, I know he said that way, but how'd he get this close back to the battle gear? What? Did the Overworlders lose their position that badly chasing them in? Why haven't the gang been rescued yet? Anyways, I think it's interesting that Odu Bathax's solution is to put his captives to work instead of the other typical uses of hostages. I think it speaks to his character, brutish as it is. Man, where are they right now? Some old part of the barracks? I seriously have no idea. So Maxor's ship can fly, go underwater, shoot missiles, and shoot out into a water jet scooter? They should have made a toy of this. I know it's just 3 frames repeating, but I really like how they animated Maxor's hair here. Also, wow, they did not shade these cliffs at all. It's really noticeable too, because it keeps flipping back between these cliffs here and the obviously more painted ones in the background. Wow, Maxor lost all of his mass here. Seriously, he looks almost Vlar-sized. Oh, we'll get to that. Ooh, take a look at this. I just love how Maxor flips through his expressions here. Ooh, good thinking on Song's translocation. Maxor probably would have one on hand. It's an interesting drawback that the Marillions can't be close or they'll transport with him. It makes the waterfall scene a lot smarter too, even if they don't show him using the music to get out of there. Do you think the showrunners consciously thought of him screaming to trick the Marillions, or was he just trying to fool the audience and say that Maxor didn't actually expect to go off? So did Maxor really just come out here to see the damage for himself? You couldn't use one of those communication crystals? Okay. Seriously, where are they right now? It looks like a coliseum. This statue that Interest pulls the spear out of is still actually holding the spear if you look closely. It seems like the animators drew over the statue, but then forgot to remove it. This is a little earlier, but wait. Is that the scepter of the infernal parasite? Jesus. I mean, I know the Horn Saber was pulled out, and we're about to go into some other legendary cards just next episode, but giving it to Raznus is a pretty specific kind of a meaningful echo. Man, there's these chittering sounds as Raznus goes around the walls. It's a really weird sound effect, and kind of creepy how casually he does it too. The sound design really complements this nicely. I've seen a few comments from other viewers about how Param's world is weirdly sci-fi and advanced, but then they also have stuff like swords. We have this huge electrical machine in this episode, right? I don't know. I think it's cool. I like it.
How much longer, Bodil?
How much longer, OPX?
Okay. OKX giving this non-answer to his boss in the middle of this battlefield is pretty funny. Can I say that? Can I say something is funny? Whatever. I like that even in an episode where they aren't doing really much except acting as the audience, Tom and Kaz are still doing something small. Raznus clearly has his mouth open in this shot, but it's closed in this next one. And if it's not obvious from what he says here, he tries to fire a Danian parasite.
I'm afraid I will have to make you understand, Interest.
Okay, that parasite absolutely would have hit interest before Maxwell could yell out, but whatever.
Last time I spared you because we were old friends. Now you're a threat to all the overworld. We, the Danians, did not come to attack your city.
It's interesting that not even once in this episode does Raznus try to deny or approve of any claims of his past overworld history. He just outright seems to ignore them.
I am a Danian.
You used to be an overworlder. The Danians infected you to change you into one of them.
I don't know what you are, Raznus.
This could just be him suppressing it, but when you factor in things like the Hive Call, or the Mandiblore Crown, Yondaf's card text, or Hammerdoom's bio, you really get the impression that he's just been outright mind-wiped by the Danians. Which is why I don't really agree with the theory I brought up in that episode, that Raznus just allowed himself to be assimilated as some last-ditch effort to bring peace between the tribes. Plus, the text on his actual card. It makes some of the quotes he says this episode really upsetting, which is why Tom has this line.
You used to be an overworlder.
Even if I find that line heavy-handed in execution. Going back to the card though, man, this is rough. All the Danians look either ignorant or are giving him the stink eye in his normal art, but in his assimilated art, they're all cheering and stuff. Ugh. By the way, what do you think they did with the old embassy? Just wreck it? Man, that sucks. Raznus had some of his stuff in there too. Aw, man, his village? Jeez, Chaotic. Come on, don't break my heart further.
The Mount Pillar Reservoir has been poisoned with toxic water by the Marillions. Queen Alexia sent us to find a place to create a new homeland so that the Danians might have a chance to survive. It's not just Mount Pillar.
Now here's some good writing. This parallels well with the Maxor scenes earlier. Also, dang, that does suck for the Danians. I do wish we got to see more of them being non-villains. Also, by the way, because the Nest of Ancestors was being built near the end of the war, do you think this scouting was also used for that?
Okay, he's ready to fire.
You think I trust an overworlder with this?
Good idea for Odu to obviously not trust them to control it. He just didn't think that far ahead, I guess. I guess you can argue it's dumb that the Danians lose because of this, but it works thematically, right? He messed around, found out, got the consequences. Anyways, so did Olgiax just make it so that it'd aim for their antenna? Or did it only bounce to the Danians because it hit their commander first and then shoot to his men? A satellite dish and an antenna. Wait a minute. Good lord, what is with Intrus's hair here?
Nothing to worry about, Maxor. I have the situation under control.
Man, Olgiax is great. We know from the cards he does look up to Bodil and doesn't really mind that he doesn't get the credit, but with this shrug and expression alone, we know he's not a total idiot about it. On the other hand, man, Bodil really is kind of a sniffling loser this episode. He totally is one even in the cards, so I don't really mind too much, but he is a smart and an intelligent creature. The cards make him out to be this really analytical calculator guy that just gets thrown off by things going off course, which, mood. And his debut episode characterizes his strengths really well. I'm not sure if this is to overcorrect his character, but I guess he was working on the device at the start of the episode, and he was off his game because the Danians showed up, so it might totally be fine. Like I said, it's not extremely out of character, it might even be more in character, but there it is. Anyways, what is the battle gear here? Bodil's description earlier seemed to imply it just destroys stuff.
This battle gear breaks the molecular bonds of any solid...
But is that it? It targets the Danians at the end and beginning of the episode, so is it just for that? It's pretty convenient if so.
The Danians are returning to their queen with a message. It's time for a truce. We've got to join forces to defeat our common enemy, the Marillions.
Alright, getting somewhere with this war. Despite just being at each other's throats for most of the episode, this one really does show a tipping point for the tribes, that they absolutely do not need to be fighting amongst themselves when the Marillions are around. You know what's really juicy about this too? Raznus is the one who openly admitted the Danians' problems, and that allowed them all to sympathize and really push them to work together. In his own way, even as a Danian, he still helped the tribes unite. You know, this episode might be better than I give it credit for sometimes. I never really thought it was a bad episode. I always just thought the episode where Raznus returns, or whatever, had the potential to really make someone tear up, or just be juicy in backstory. They had an opportunity for a real 1-2 punch to the heart, and this episode doesn't really have that. In fact, it has the opposite. Hardly anyone has any sympathy for Raznus at all. But it's still heartbreaking, right? Everything happening with Raznus is oozing in irony. And while he's on the Danian side, and he's changed, there's still parts of him that are still shining through. In general, the episode complements Raznus really well, but it isn't as great as Dangers of Diplomacy, and the A-plot would probably feel really basic if he wasn't in the episode. So I do think the fact that this isn't a super emotional or heavy episode is a disappointing flaw, but the episode itself is hardly awful. We see a lot of neat action scenes with multiple creatures, even if ultimately it is technically lame. No one except Intrus and Raznus really use any super cool abilities. Even if most of the episode is focused on this infighting rather than the Marillions, I think the biggest thing is that, most importantly, the plot progresses and the tribes are going to try and work together. Finally, God, this is such a breath of fresh air, especially after Earth to Kaz. Hey everyone, this is where I put the closing of the video and put any shoutouts or comments or donators if I ever opened a Ko-Fi or something. Would people be interested in that? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. This took pretty much an entire week of non-stop work to make, so I'm unsure how things will proceed in the future as I don't want to monetize these videos since the bulk of the content is just flat out the show. If there was anything you wanted to point out or let me know or had a question or thought about, totally write it in the comments. The engagement really helps. Have a great day!